Hi, this is Anna Imagination with Shifting Perspectives, and thank you so much for joining me from the Healing Garden. I want to just put pause on everything and step back, and I'm reflecting, and I finally had this massive, oh, there's the connection. From day one with all of this, I have looked at it and gone, my partner is part of this. And I have not been able to figure out how, but it's this voice in my head that just keeps going back over it. He's part of this. He's part of this. He's part of this. And then I've had people come along and, oh, just dump him, which is so fourth perspective. And I'm like, no, he's part of this. And this morning I paused, I grabbed a cup of tea, I did some dishes and I was thinking, and I finally saw it and I went, oh, there it is. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful how the whole thing just played out. It's so well woven that in hindsight, you can see just how well woven it all is. And I know there are people who get this. I'm going to assume from now on that I'm talking to ninth perspectives. I have to assume that I'm just talking to ninth perspectives. Every time I start a video, I think, who's in my audience? And this is why you need to know your niche. Every time I start a video, I think, who is in my audience? And I think, who do I need to talk to? Who do I need to talk down to? Talk down to is fourth perspective talk for talking outside of your own perspective to somebody who's lower than you in perspective. And it's not condescending. That's a projection. That is internalizing. There is so much that we internalize and we don't know we're internalizing it. So when you call someone arrogant, it's because you are internalizing their perspective. So technically, no one's arrogant. Now you can have an imbalance of self-importance, and that is not the case, because an inflated self of importance is just a lack of humility. Just a lack of humility. They have the right amount of self-value. They just have no humility to keep it in check. Same thing with arrogance. There is no such thing as arrogance. Arrogance is an internalizing emotion. It is an emotion where you internalize somebody else just being their authentic selves. So I'm going to be authentic right here in my space. I'm going to talk to ninth perspectives. I'm going to get angry about second perspectives and thirds and fourths because they don't value growth, and they need to. That's the problem. They are the people who need to grow the most and who are refusing to grow at all. And that's where I have a problem with second, third, and fourths. And because of their lack of growth and their refusal to grow, they project it on everyone else and they hurt everybody else. They are the abusers of our world. Not all of them, but yes, they are the abusers of the world because they refuse to grow, because they are so resistant to any other perspective other than their own. They are intolerant and they need to grow. So they are intolerant and they refuse to grow. As a result, they project and they internalize, and it has completely poisoned our society. So yeah, I am absolutely holding the second, thirds, and fourths accountable for this bullshit. It's their fault. And I don't expect them to fix it. I want them to be held accountable, not hold accountable. I don't want to hold them accountable. I want them to become accountable for the mess they've made. So I'm not going to preserve their feelings because they need to set a boundary. And they have some stuff to learn. And the minute I start preserving their feelings, I start enabling their problem. That's codependency. I don't do that shit. So no, I am going to speak out and say the second, thirds, and fourths, this is their fault. They put us in this mess, and they are not holding themselves accountable for the problem that they have caused. And they are intolerant and refuse to grow. I'm calling them out on their bullshit. So this is ninth perspective space. This is ninth perspective space. I'm not going to talk down for anybody anymore. I'm going to talk to you. And if you can't understand me, that is your needing to grow. When you talk and I don't understand you, now that is my cue that I need to grow. Now, that being said, so I had this massive moment where I was looking at my relationship. My relationship was very, very free and open. No boundaries, no rules. Well, as can be expected, there were problems because there were no boundaries and no rules. So instead of creating boundaries, because that's dangerous for the two of us, we created rules instead. And when I started creating rules and he started creating rules, we started to feel suppressed. We started to immediately become resentful because rules are what destroys the identity. Suddenly we weren't being authentic with each other. And that created a place of not feeling safe. Now, had we just used boundaries, this would have been all avoided. Now he's in a place where he needs to, he's on walkabout, and he needs to basically define his own ethics, the first three ethics, because he's losing. He's lost all three of the first three ethics. He needs to learn to ask for help. He needs to experience self-value. He has way too much humility. He needs the opposite. He needs to, no, actually, see, humility and humble are two different things. There's being humble, and then there's humility. And he has too much of being humble, but he hasn't learned humility. He's humble, but not humility. Humility is the feeling of, I need to bite the bullet and ask for help. So he's over humble versus self. And that's it right there, is over there is being humble, and over here is being overinflated self-value or self-importance. It's actually not overinflated. It's the right amount of self-value, but lacking humble. He has all humble, but he lacks all self-importance. When you have the two of them together, then it puts you in this beautiful place of humility where you can finally ask for help. And he's out of balance. He's all humble, and he won't ask for help because that's humility. So he's still stuck in perspective 3. And he also defines his importance based on his job and where he is in relationship to the patriarchy. So he hasn't learned resourcefulness yet, and he has not learned how to comfort himself. So those are his 3 demons that he's battling right now. And I'm at a point where I just got to leave him alone and let him be. So that's what I'm doing. I'm leaving him alone and letting him be. And I realized while I'm over here doing my work that the difference between a boundary and a rule. A rule is a projection of your own insecurity onto other people. That's it. A rule is a projection of your own insecurity onto other people. A boundary is the tool we use through communication to ensure that we do not project and we do not allow others to project their insecurities onto us. Insecurity and security. We talk about this all the time, but no one knows what it actually means. When you are secure or when you feel insecure, you're actually referring to how well you trust your skills on keeping you safe. Measure it. If you are insecure, it is because you doubt your skills to keep you safe. You don't think you can. That's why you're insecure. So we then project our feelings of insecurity onto others by enforcing rules. That's what fourth perspectives do. That's why they're so law and order obsessed, is because all they do is force and project their rules and laws onto everybody else because they won't use boundaries, because boundaries requires the skill of self-government, which they haven't learned. Rules are absolutely toxic. Rules kill everything, because the minute rules are a prosthetic. There are a lot of prosthetics in psychology. There is so many prosthetics. Mental illness is a prosthetic. It is a prosthetic that your subconscious mind uses to plug in your lack of one of these ethics. People are used as prosthetics. That's when we project onto other people. We are using people as a prosthetic to compensate for our insecurity. Rules are a prosthetic for boundaries that we don't have. So every time you project, every time you seek out a prosthetic, whether you do it subconsciously or on purpose, because you pursue safety, because you pursue control, which, by the way, if you pursue control, you're pursuing safety. Instead of being honest with yourself about feeling unsafe and doubting your own skills, This is why we always say you have to do inward work. This is why we always say you have to turn inward. Unfortunately, truly, for all of us, we've got all these professionals screaming at us, go do your inner work, go do your shadow work. What is that? What is that? Let's just pause everything, step back and ask, what does that even mean? The worst thing I hated more than anything, of all the things that I was told, the bullshit that I was told, the one at the top was, you have to love yourself before you can love others. What does that even mean? Let's analyze that. Love myself. What it means is you have to have your 9 core lessons of authenticity before you can provide anyone with a healthy, stable version of you. That's it. You can love. We all know that. You can absolutely love other people without loving yourself. It's such a sloppy word. And that's just it. There are so many things that we say from the 4th perspective that's sloppy. And because we are using sloppy language, we're getting sloppy results. Boom, I need that patented. That's an awesome thing to say. That's it. We are using sloppy language and we are getting sloppy results. That's the issue. Clean up our language. It's not a mental illness. It's a behavioral defense. It's a prosthetic for our insecurities because we project. Let's talk about the projector. Let's talk about the internalizer. That's huge. That is so huge. I need to organize all of my brain. That's technically what the healing garden is. The healing garden is my organized brain. And after I had these latest epiphanies, I just sat back and went, wow, I need to completely revamp house and clean out because my 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th perspectives were all over the place because they were trying to figure out the big question. And when I got to the 9th perspective, I went, I understand the big question. And now I'm just sitting here looking at all of it going, okay, so I have a lot to clean out. There's a lot of unnecessary jargon. There's a lot of unnecessary side points that I don't need. And as a result, it's really cluttered. And I have a core rule that if it's not simple, it's not true. I have found the simplicity of it, but I have a lot of stuff to just kind of cut away and get rid of now that's in the garden that's just clutter and chaos. And it's making it very difficult for other people to go in and do what they need. But I realized that there were too many rules in my relationship, that the relationship fell apart when I used too many rules. And the more rules that we brought on, the worse the relationship got because I was projecting my insecurities onto him instead of dealing with my insecurities. And then he felt resentful. He did go along with my rules, 100%. He was very supportive. That's the problem. He was too supportive. He should have been saying, Anna, you are projecting your bullshit onto me. I love you. Please stop. And he didn't because he lacks the first core ethic, which is you can comfort yourself. Learning how to comfort yourself. Oh, I'm going to have classes where all I talk about are these different 9 lessons. This is huge. We're going to start with comforting yourself. I'm going to talk about this right now, but the others are going to go on different YouTube videos. The ability to comfort yourself. And this is another thing. In psychology, we're taught, go comfort yourself. You need to learn self-comfort. Well, what does that mean? Self-care. Go do that. No. There's a perspective. I love this example. It's my favorite one. It's my favorite one. You have your mother, who's the comfort zone. That is the safe space. That is the genie bottle. That's the place where you go when all the world is right and you're grounded. And I hope you play video games because you're going to love this. And then there's the growth zone. That's the adventuring zone. And that's the place where you can go and explore. And then you've got the fear zone, the dark abyss. And every time I talk about the dark abyss and the fear zone, one image comes to mind every time. Wow, World of Warcraft. So World of Warcraft is designed in such a way that you are first perspective. You are first level 1. You get out there and yay, and you kill a bunch of zombies and they die instantly because you're a level 1 and they're a level 1 and everyone dies and you're happy. And then you get to level 2, you get to level 5, and then you get to your homeland. I'm an elf, so my homeland was always this gorgeous, breathtaking Rivendell. And I was like, yes, I'm in Lothlorien. I was so, this is why I was addicted to WoW. And Then you can go and basically it levels up with you. So the area you're in is your level. Now that's not the way Skyrim is. With Skyrim, everyone is leveled to your level. Everyone is leveled so that you power up equally. WoW doesn't do that. WoW takes the gloves off. You could be a level 2 and you could find a level 60 and then you could have your ass beat. Now here's the problem. A spawn point, if you don't play video games, is the point where your avatar comes back to life. There's one place in the game you had to be a level 60 before you could even approach the door. Approach the door. Well, I was curious and I wanted to know what it was. I showed up as a level 2 and I died. Just because I showed up at the door. And then I would spawn. And I remember this one day I would spawn and I'd die. And then I'd spawn and then I'd die. And then I'd spawn and then I'd die. And I finally got far enough away that I could survive and leave. I love WoW, but that is the dark abyss. That is fear. So when I say the fear zone, the dark abyss, that is what I imagine is that place in WoW. I never got past it because you can't get past that until you're ready for it. But we start off with our mothers. We have our comfort zone, and then we have that growth zone, and then we have the dark abyss. And our mothers are supposed to teach us how to comfort ourselves. But if you have a helicopter parent, they will do all the comforting for you. So you never learn. You could go on to be 5 years old, dropped off at kindergarten, and you don't know how to comfort yourself because your mother never showed you. So were you the child to get dropped off and then scream for 2 hours? That's because your mother failed to teach you how to comfort yourself. The signs are already there. Were you the child that got dropped off with daddy and you just screamed because it wasn't mommy? That's because your mother failed to teach you how to comfort yourself. You were supposed to learn this in the first year of life. But your mother didn't know how. Your mother was probably projecting her own insecurity and codependency and love equals being needed onto you. So she turned you into an empath or a narcissist instead. See, that's the point. You have a choice. Well, your mother had a choice, but she was too ignorant and uneducated to know this. That when you have a child, you have 3 choices. Do I teach the child how they can comfort themselves? Or do I use my child to be my master and turn him into a narcissist? Or do I neglect my child because I don't need them? So I teach them how to be an empath who desires my attention and associates being loved with being needed. Those are your 3 choices. Almost every mother subconsciously chooses to turn her children into narcissists and empaths instead of teaching them how they can comfort themselves. So when the child is dropped off at a daycare and the child screams, it's because they do not know how to comfort themselves because their mother is more concerned about projecting her needs onto her children than teaching them how to comfort themselves. Now, the father comes along. Welcome to Second Perspective. And the father says, God, I have been looking for these questions all of my life. Why does a child need a father? There it is. A father comes along, and the child is defined by the role assigned by the head of the household, by the father. The father assigns the child the role. The father is supposed to teach children resourcefulness. That's what the father is supposed to do. The father is supposed to teach the child resourcefulness. But they don't because they project their needs and desires onto the child instead. Well, this child is just going to be like me when I grow up. Well, that's not why I'm like. They are intolerant to other perspectives. They are intolerant to identity. They have expectations and rules. So they are projecting their insecurities and their dreams and wishes onto the child. So the child doesn't learn resourcefulness. So now you have a 3-year-old who does not know how to comfort themselves. You have a child who does not know how to be resourceful. And now the child decides it's time for me to do all of this on my own at 3 years old, which is fantastic. That's exactly where the child needs to be in its development, thinking that it can do everything on its own. that stage is vital to its growth. So the child does. It learns it can do everything on its own. But if you have a helicopter mother who swoops in and saves the day, you're never going to learn that you can do it on your own. So you're never going to learn humility. You're never going to learn to ask for help. You are never going to learn to trust people. And meanwhile, the father who refuses to teach you resourcefulness, not because he's on purpose not teaching you resourcefulness, but because he's just ignorant. We really need to take a minute and acknowledge and accept that our generations before us were stupid, uneducated. That is a fact. Because if they were smart, if they were educated, if they were not ignorant, if they were aware, they would not have done this. They would have done it based on the 9 core lessons of authenticity. We call it the age of enlightenment. Oh, fuck no, that is the wrong name for that era. It was not the age of enlightenment. It was the age of projecting your insecurities onto other people. It was not the dark ages. Actually, that's very appropriate. I really want to keep it the dark ages because it really was the age of Lord of the Flies. I have been trying to figure this out for so long. When I studied sociology, I went, Rome was glorious. It was magnificent. And then the Dark Ages happened. What happened? I don't understand how we can go from Rome building the aqueduct and the pyramids and Stonehenge to Dark Ages. Oh, but while we're in the Dark Ages, let's build the cathedrals. That did not make sense to me, and it bothered me. I now understand it. I absolutely now understand it. So now I can stop processing sociology and put it to sleep because I get it now. But these are the roles. Now I'm going to flip this around a little bit because we're ninth perspectives. We're not going to do, everyone's ninth perspective. If you're in the space, you're automatically, I'm calling you a ninth perspective. We're all ninth perspectives now. Yeah, we're all ninth perspectives. Welcome to my space. All right. You are my equal. I love that. You are my equal. So here's what we're going to do. I don't want to say mother, father. I don't want to say that anymore because that's fourth perspective categorization. The word is nurturer. And the other word, where are my pens? The other word is provider. It's not mother, father. It's nurturer, provider. And they are without gender. Between my partner and I, I'm the provider, he's the nurturer. Oh, solid, 100%. 100%. I cannot nurture. My children cry around me and they need comfort. And I go, what do I do? And I literally think, what would he do? And I imagine him in that circumstance. And then I try and copy him. And it's really hard for me. Now, I have been called many things because of this. I'm not maternal, but I'm very maternal. I am maternal in a different way. Again, now we're getting back into fourth perspective words. Maternal, paternal, garbage words, sloppy language. And that's just what I'm going to call it, sloppy language. No, you are a nurturer or a provider. A nurturer and a provider can be a nurturer. A provider can nurture. And a nurturer can provide. It depends on which balance you have inside of you. Every one of us has a different flex of balances. So you could be 50-50 of one. You could be 28 of 20-80. You could have a 90-10. You could be 99 and 1. And that's fine. Stop using words like masculine, feminine, mother, father. That's archaic. That's so fourth perspective. Stop using them. It's sloppy language. We have nurturers, we have providers. And the nurturer is supposed to teach us how to comfort. The provider, provide resources. Isn't that awesome? The provider is supposed to teach us how to be resourceful. And then we take our comfort and we take our resourcefulness, and we're supposed to go on walkabout with comfort and resourcefulness. But we really need a foundation in comfort and resourcefulness to go on walkabout. And if you don't have comfort and resourcefulness, it's going to kill you. You're going to die because you're Your parents failed. Your nurturer and your provider failed to provide you with comfort and resourcefulness. So when you come together with a partner, and it's magnetism, I'm going to tell you right now, it is magnetism. It is balanced. I guarantee you will not find a couple where there are two nurturers and two providers. You will not. I have seen so many LGBTQIA couples out there, and there is always a nurturer and a provider. The genders go all over the place. The sexualities all over the place. I love it. Every conformity is broken, but there is a nurturer and a provider. In every case, that is how the universe balances itself. There are no rules, there are no laws, there are no categories. It is just nurturer and provider. So which are you? Which one do you fall toward? Or are you split down the middle? You can be split down the middle. I have seen couples where they are split down the middle, where they both can switch and both take both. That's fine. That would be a circumstance where you both teach resourcefulness and you both teach comfort. Fine. But I've also seen highly provider, highly nurturer, and neither one of them teaching anything. They do it for the child instead of teaching the child how to do it on their own. And it's exactly the same thing that my partner and I did. He was the nurturer, I was the provider. And that's one of the conflicts he and I have, is he has this massive societal expectation on him that he's got to be the provider. In the meantime, I'm me. And I'm going, screw that shit. I'll do it all because I'm a provider. I threw out the society a long time ago. So I'm watching the way he and I interact. I'm watching the way he and I fall together. And it's extraordinary. And I'm watching him battle this, I have to be a provider because I'm a man. And I'm going, dude, you are so not a provider. He gets no joy out of it. He's a Cancer. He gets no joy out of providing. It's not who he is. He is a nurturer through and through. And his greatest suffering is literally him feeling obligated by society to be a provider when he's not, when he's a nurturer. But how does a man embrace that nurturing energy inside of them in this kind of a society? Well, the answer is simple. You leave the society and you create your own. But he can't do that until he finishes his walkabout and he figures out how to comfort himself and how to become resourceful for himself and how to ask for help. And it's amazing because and he's got everything else. He's a 9. He is a 9 who had these 3 core lessons of authenticity compromised through abuse. So which core lessons did you have compromised? Which core lessons for you was compromised? Mine was resourcefulness, asking for help. That was a big one for me. Like that one is really hard for me. And I'm fine with being self-governed. And I'm absolutely fine with being accountable. And I am aligned. So I had 2. I was lacking my resourcefulness and I was lacking my asking for help. And that's hard. So those were my 2. Now, once I was able to prove to myself that I am resourceful, show myself, and it was funny because it was yesterday. I've always been resourceful, but yesterday I saw it. We're out of sugar in the house and I'm making coffee, I'm making teas, and I'm having to get creative with cooking. Oh my God, do I love cooking. I do a whole different thing when it comes to cooking. And we didn't have sugar in the house. So my son and I did let's do an inventory. Let's look at what we have. What are our resources? This is what resourcefulness looks like. Take an inventory. What do you have at your disposal? This is really thinking outside the box. Fourth perspective. And I realized we have pancake syrup. We have maple syrup, which is just pure sugar. We have jelly and jams. So I took oatmeal and flour and then jelly and jam, and I put it into this oatmeal and flour concoction, and then I mixed it, and then I fried it in olive oil. Oh my God. And it's pancakes. Actually, it's hotcakes. It's a very old recipe. It's called an ash cake. That's where I base the recipe off of. I do campfire cooking and historical cooking. I cook from I pull up recipes from the 1700s and do those. I do recipes from the 1600s in the exact same style. You give me a campfire. I have a story about this. So I'm not going to get into it. I have so many, me with a campfire and me cooking. Lights went out. I woke up. There was and I was doing the fresh ground coffee bean. I'm a tourist. I was doing fresh ground coffee beans. And then I do a French press. And that morning I woke up and there was no electricity. So my solution, I go outside, I build a fire. I go and I grab my mortar and pestle and I'm sitting here like grounding up my coffee beans with a mortar and pestle going, it's actually really nice. Why am I using a grinder every morning? I should be doing this instead. And then I go out there, I grab my campfire carafe and I put it all together and I sit there. It takes about an hour. But boy, I had the best coffee that morning. I'm sitting there sipping my nice campfire coffee. And then I called the phone company. Or no, the electric company. So I just made myself campfire coffee. And I was wondering when the electricity was going to be back on. No rush. I've got my coffee, so it's good. That's resourcefulness. That's resourcefulness. When problems arise in life, and this is big, when problems arise in life, how we get through them is what it's all about. This is all the zombie apocalypse is about. For those of you, I'm one of them, who focuses on your zombie apocalypse plan, because I got one, it's 100% all right. What are we going to do about the situation? Let's get the resources, food, weapons, survival guide. Let's go execute. Like I'm that person. And it's all about your resourcefulness. How are you going to be resourceful in a situation where your resources are cut off? I will live on the land, bushcraft. Like that is resourcefulness. That's the shit you're supposed to learn from your provider who provides because they're resourceful. But they didn't. They projected their insecurities onto you instead. When everything fell apart between my partner and I, he and I kept this massive, we held on to each other. And everyone from the fourth perspective had an opinion about us. The internet had an opinion about us. Our therapists had opinions about us. Everyone had a fucking opinion about us. Seventh perspective, we finally learned how to close the door and shut everyone out. We were so different and we couldn't figure out why. The reason why we're different is because we're both ninth perspectives. That's why we're both different. So our relationship is really out there. It's very different. And this concept of, oh, that person let you down, dump them. That's fourth perspective. That's because they have not learned resourcefulness or asking for help. If you are quick to dump somebody who is not good for you, are they good for you? Or do you have a problem asking for help and working through a relationship? So this is my huge, take this chunk with you. If you know how to comfort yourself, and if you know how to be resourceful, and if you know how to ask for help and when you need to ask for help, if you can encompass your own humility and say, I can't do this alone, and if you know how to self-govern, then when you sit down with a partner, you are now in a position where you can decide if that person is good for you or not. But if you lack any one of those four core ethics, it's not going to work. You're going to have a relationship problem, a massive one. Now, you have to have a certain number of these core ethics in place in order for that relationship to work, in order for any relationship to work. It's a matter of priority. You can have a 8th, 9th, 7th, 6th perspective ethic and have your 1st, 2nd, 3rd taken away from you. Every time we are abused, one of our core lessons of authenticity is under attack and is being taken away from us. That's what abuse is. That's why we need boundaries to protect our core lessons of authenticity. We are walking into the age of authenticity and we're clueless. That's the problem. Is you've got a whole lot of six perspectives shedding everything from the man age. And we're walking into the age of authenticity when our God comes out. And we have no idea what we're doing. We don't know that there are 9 core lessons of authenticity. We don't know that there are 9+ perspectives here because we've been living in a place where there's only one perspective. It's the 4th perspective, and everyone else is intolerable. Everyone else is not allowed to exist any other way. And that is perspective abuse that has deliberately attacked our 9 core lessons of authenticity. And while that's going on, we have people who are projecting their own insecurities onto us, attacking the lessons that we already learned if our parents even taught them with us to begin with. So when you go to therapy and you want to know what's wrong with me, I'm so emotional. You need to go through these 9 core ethics. You need to relearn all of these. And it starts with self-comfort, how to do self-comfort. So going back to that example of there's the mother, there's the growth zone, there's the dark abyss. The comfort is learning this process, learning how to ground and energize yourself, and then going and adventuring and learning that it's safe to adventure. That's growing. And knowing that when you come too close to that fear zone, you don't get too close to that door, you pull back. And then when you're tired and you've exhausted yourself, you go back to the home base and you put down your clothes, you put down your war gear, you organize all your treasures, you make some more magic potions, you recuperate, you eat, you build up more food, you build up your resources. See what you're doing there? Your comfort zone, your genie bottle, is where you get comfort because you are being resourceful. That's what you're doing there. You're safe. It's your place where you can glorify in all the things you've collected because it's your identity. That's what your home is. That's what your comfort zone is. It's when you do all the things that you love to celebrate who you are. So it's, yay, celebrate the self, woohoo! And then there's, let's go define the self. And you go into the growth zone and you're going, I'm going to define the self. Who am I? What do I love? Ooh, this is a shiny rock. It reminds me of me. Literally, we do this. And then you take it back to your nest as a token of who you are. And then you celebrate it. And then you go back to the growth zone and you do it again. So you are either celebrating the self or you are defining the self. That is comfort. That is it. Fear is when the self is being threatened. That's when your identity is being threatened. And all that hard work, your collections. Okay, here's some. I love talking about Little Mermaid. Little Mermaid is one of my favorite things to talk about because it is so fantastic for this. So the Little Mermaid goes out and she explores and she collects trinkets and dinglehoppers and things. And she brings them back to her cave. First, she names them. So she takes them to Scuttle and Scuttle defines them and names them. And she takes them back to her cave and she creates a shrine of all the things I love. And that's her home. Now, her father, who was very 4th perspective, came in and said, this is my perspective. You're not allowed to have your perspective. You're not allowed to have an identity. How dare you have an identity? So he walks into her genie bottle and he destroys everything she has. He symbolically destroyed her identity that day. He said to her very simply, you cannot be you. You have to be me. He was projecting his being onto her. Oh, yeah. You bet your fucking ass she went to the witch. She did. She went to the witch and said, fuck the shit. Make me who I want to be. I will make you who you want to be, but I'm going to take your communication system away from you. You're not going to be able to use any boundaries. I'm going to take your defense system away. Oh, you'll get your identity back. I'm going to turn you into a human and send you up out of the ocean. But you're not going with your boundaries. And she said, I don't care. I want to be me. So she made her into a human, and she was thrown into her ideal dream world without any boundaries. My God, do I love The Little Mermaid. Absolutely stunning. It is not about, I'm going to sacrifice everything I am for a man. Stop projecting your bullshit onto my Ariel. No, that's your bullshit. The story is about a person who is so in love with her identity and then had her identity ripped away from her due to perspective abuse, that she lost everything. And she had to go to some significantly extreme measures just to be herself, because her father, who was a fourth projector, absolutely destroyed who she was for his own insecurity. Bad parenting. Bad fucking parenting. Yeah. If you love shit like this, like, subscribe, comment below. Let me know what part of the video resonated with you, and donate. Help me grow the garden. Thank you so much, and may the kindest of words always find you.